There we go. We are live. Welcome back to the Comics Cube. I am back with Karl Kesel, one of my earliest guests on the show. How are you?
I'm good. I guess earliest is a nicer way of saying oldest. I'm doing great. I'm doing great. And yourself?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm glad to see that you're wearing your Impossible Jones glasses
And my shirt. I thought you were going to say the shirt. I forgot about the
and the
glass.
shirt, the wonderful shirt by Elsa Charretier.
I
I
know.
hope I
I'm
said that
so
name right.
lucky. I'm so glad that I got her to do something before she became a superstar.
Isn't she amazing? She's
She's
amazing.
amazing. Yeah. Yeah.
Karl, so just to, you said on Facebook you haven't had your coffee. You had coffee at Starbucks, you didn't buy coffee. I hear you people saying it's 7 a.m. where Karl is and 11 p.m. where I am, and that's a terrible time for a live stream. You would be right, but any other time, one of us is sleeping. So we do what we can.
I sleep a lot. I know. No, I don't. I know. Actually, I sleep very little.
Okay. Impossible Jones, Volume 2, the Ultra Cool Collector's Edition. Collects Impossible Jones Team Up A to D. I actually have over here Impossible Jones A to C. And I
And
believe
D is coming your way. I've mailed it out.
that's awesome. So D is coming my way.
Yeah.
So 3 years ago, 2021, the only one you had was Impossible Jones Grin and Gritty, which was the full first graphic novel for Impossible Jones. So really quickly for our viewers, would you like to tell them what Impossible Jones is all about?
Excuse me. Yeah, certainly. The elevator pitch is she's a thief. She gains superpowers and then is mistaken for a superhero and decides to run with it with no intention of giving up her thieving ways. And because with these powers, it makes it even easier to be a master thief. But now that people think she's a hero, the cops are not after her. In fact, the cops are more than happy to tell her, like, yeah, we got, our patrols out on the east side tonight. Don't worry about the east side. Yeah, so she doesn't go to the east side if she's going to steal something. And jewelry store owners happy to show her their security system. Happy. So, so she's walking this very fine line of pretending to be a hero when she's still a thief.
And this character is very much influenced by a classic Golden Age superhero, is she not?
Well, yeah. I mean, she originally came literally woke up one morning with an idea how I would do Plastic Man, which is what I just said, because if you remember the Plastic Man origin, Eel O'Brien is a thief. He's doing something thievery-ish, falls into a vat of acid. When he wakes up, he has powers to stretch. And he says, I will fight crime. And I woke up one morning, I literally woke up and I said, no, he wouldn't say I fight crime. He would say, I'm going to get payback on the sons of bitches who left me for dead. And when he goes after his old gang, it looks like he's going after criminals, right? So people think he's a hero. And I thought, that's how I'd do Plastic Man. But DC wasn't interested. And so I decided I'd do it as a creator-owned. And I made Plastic Man into a woman, changed around a little bit about the shape-shifting abilities. And part of the woman angle was I had written Harley Quinn for a couple of years and really enjoyed it. I enjoyed that sort of really energetic, vivacious female character and really wanted to do more with that sort of character. So I took Harley Quinn and Plastic Man and came up with Impossible Jones, who really, I mean, owes a lot to both characters, but is, I think, quite different from either.
Yes. I think by combining the two of them, you get to a place where she's really neither of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I was very early on very worried that people might think she's too much like Harley Quinn. And that's why David and I created a character called Holly Days, who really is a Harley Quinn surrogate, But contrasting the two of them, you really start to see how different Impossible Jones is. In fact, I was writing some of the new material for the book the other day, and I realized that Harley just doesn't care what other people think of her. And I think that's not Harley. Impossible Jones doesn't care what other people think of her. And Harley Quinn doesn't notice what other people think of her. just goes right over her head, and she just
Hmm.
keeps being Harley Quinn. Impossible Jones knows what people think, and she just doesn't give a shit, you know.
Unless it gets in the way of her plans.
Yeah, well, obviously, but if someone doesn't like her, it doesn't bother her. You know what I mean? She's not going to go out of her way to make you her friend if it's not worth her time.
Now, what you told me the first time we ever spoke about Impossible Jones was that you had a plan for Impossible Jones Volume 2, which was not this.
Yes,
But
that's very true.
then the Suicide Squad came out, and you got a
Yeah,
nice check for King Shark.
I
So how'd
did.
that
And
come about?
yeah. I mean, we were working on what was going to be called, and it still is, but it's now Volume 3. It's still going to be called Alias Smith and Jones. And we had a big story planned, like a big graphic novel story planned, like the next movie. But then I got this nice royalty check from DC because King Shark had been in Suicide Squad, and it opened up it. I don't want to say open doors, but it made things just a little easier to play around a little bit. And so I said to David, how about we hold off on that big movie, the big graphic novel, and let's do a series of smaller stories where we just really expand and explore Impossible Jones' world, and see where she hangs out, and really kind of get a feel for the city. And I can't really even say why I thought this was important, but I really wanted to do this. I wanted to get a feel for what was going on there, and the sort of people there, and where they hung out in the different neighborhoods. And so that, and I thought it'd be fun to do that as a series of 4 team up books, because team ups are fun. And that also gave us a chance to focus on one specific character other than Imp each issue. And it was going to be really small. We were going to do like all 4 issues in 1 year, but each book got bigger and bigger
I
and
was
bigger.
gonna say
Yeah. I mean,
this is in order, and they get thicker and thicker.
yeah, even the first one with Holly Days was a 30-page story, 30-page main story. And then the next one with Captain Lightning was 38 pages. And then the one with Polecat was 48 pages. And then our latest one with American Angel was 62 pages long. So, I mean, it was more than just 4 regular monthly comics, when you add it all together. It's like 8 or 9, I think, when you add them together. So it took us more than a year to do. That's all I can say. But I think it was
And
worth it. I think we got some really good stuff out there that way.
and I think it's interesting because if I take a look at good old Bronze Age Marvel team ups, usually when Spider-Man teams up with someone for like 3 issues, it's Spider-Man, like it's Spider-Man and the Scarlet Witch, and then that's it for 3 issues. But in this case, it's Impossible Jones and Holly Days, who is again a Harley Quinn riff
Surrogate. Yeah.
surrogate, and then Impossible Jones and Captain Lightning, who, much like Impossible Jones, is a character that sounds like he should have always existed.
Thank you.
And Impossible Jones and Polecat, and then Impossible Jones and American Angel. But the thing
Right.
is, this is actually one long storyline.
Yeah. That wasn't the plan. I know we talked about this before, but the plan was these were 4 standalone comics, just little stories, like I said, so we can expand and explore her little world. And I did always know that part 3 and part 4 was going to be connected because I knew there was a connection between Polecat and American Angel. So I knew those 2 were going to be connected. And, it was sometime when I was writing part 2 with Captain Lightning when I said, oh, wait, I know how I can connect 3 and 4 with part 2. Oh, and that's a way to connect to part 1. And then all of a sudden, it became a big story. That was not the idea at first, but that's how it ended up.
There is a flashback sequence in part 1, which is it's a flashback for Holidays fighting Polecat, which is told from Holidays' point of view. In part 4, Polecat says this exact same thing from his point of view, gives a new context to that scene. Was that so? That wasn't the plan at all.
No, actually, that was a happy coincidence. I mean, yeah, it really was. When I got to writing that same scene from Polecat's point of view, I was going, "Oh my God, this works out perfectly," and that was a very happy coincidence. And I will gladly take happy coincidences, and exploit them.
Over on Blue Sky, you mentioned that you turned down you bailed on a gig with another writer in order to do Impossible Jones.
Yeah.
I'm sure people are wondering what was that and who was that.
No,
Will
I,
you be
I don't
allowed
think
to
I'm.
say?
I think I can
Okay.
say. Quite honestly, man, Blue Sky. You don't have a lot of characters, so I mean, I can't go into great detail about some of these things. But I was talking to work with Cullen Bunn on a project
Okay.
that he has done now called Beyond Mortal. It was not called Beyond Mortal when I started getting involved. I actually suggested that name, and Cullen said, well, okay, this is what I want to do. Is I want these sort of archetypal characters, and one of them was he said he wanted an Iron Man character, and so I started playing around, and I eventually came up with American Angel as an Iron Man character, kind of more with I think, kind of a Joan of Arc archetype to her. But anyways, then Impossible Jones, the possibilities of working on that opened up, and I looked at Beyond Mortal and I looked at Impossible Jones, and I made the very hard call, and probably quite honestly, the less commercially successful call to go with Impossible Jones, because Cullen, he's a great writer, good guy, and he's got a lot of momentum behind him, and I know he's got big things planned for Beyond Mortal now, and that could have included me, but I decided to go in a different direction, and it was a very amicable parting. He got the name, I got or I got American Angel, and a few other minor characters I put on the table, and we shook hands and parted friends, as far as I know.
Well, you might say it's less commercial, but I remember the first two of these interviews that we did where these Kickstarters went down to the wire until you got
Yeah,
funded, right?
yeah,
But then all of a sudden, these last two, like American Angel, as well as this one, the
right,
Volume 2 hardcover, got funded on the day it launched.
yeah,
How does that
yeah.
feel having that much momentum going behind Impossible Jones now?
Well, it's very good. It's very good. I
Did you
mean, Dave and
expect
I
it?
are, what?
Did you expect it?
I mean, these things happen incrementally. I mean, I think each Impossible Jones Kickstarter did a little better, a little better. So in some ways, that you're like a frog in the water, right? You don't notice it's getting hotter. Um, I mean, this latest one funded very quickly. Uh, there's always the psychology of Kickstarters, and quite honestly, the fact that American Angel funded quickly uh, did not mean it had earned enough money to pay for itself at that point. Quite
Okay.
honestly, when we ended, I think we ended at American Angel at like 52,000, and that's really what I needed to make that book work. You know, um, and so now this one's a little different because it's a compilation. So the previous issues have already paid for the talent and for the printing of those. Really, this time around for the compilation, we've got 15 new pages of material. I've got some pinups that are going to be drawn. I'm paying Art Adams for a fold out. We are paying much more for printing because it'll be oversized hardcover. But the 20,000 goal actually does pay for this book. And so anything beyond that, and this is what I'm very excited about, this is going to pay for the next book. Because in the past, unfortunately, David and I, we've produced 5-10 pages maybe before we launch the Kickstarter. And then we have to use the Kickstarter money to pay for the rest of producing the rest of the book. But I'm hoping with the ultra cool collector's edition we're doing now, we will actually raise enough money that it will pay for most of the next Impossible Jones floppy,
What
which
what
would be great.
what makes David the best partner for this?
Well, he keeps me honest. I'll do something. He'll go, Karl, we've done this, before. We've done this, for the last 10 pages. Can we please have a change of scenery? He keeps me honest, and it keeps me from falling into bad habits. He's very smart. He sees things I don't. And artistically, so that's why he's a good partner to work with. And artistically, I love his clean style. It's got a very modern look to it. It goes really well with the urban adventurer, the urban superhero. He's got a sense of style that I don't have. It's just a lot of fun to work with him. So there, that fun to work with is really what it comes down to, isn't it?
Impossible Jones takes place in a city called New Hope, and I'm really glad that you were able to do this. These series of team ups so that we can actually see New Hope City, and really see just exactly how you've built this world. One of the things that I love about it is that instead of a beauty pageant, you have the Persephone contest, which
Yeah.
means that there is a deputized official superhero for this city and it changes every year depending on who wins.
Right. Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
where did that come from? That particular idea?
I cannot tell you where that idea came from, but I've always liked that idea. The idea of kind of this, what began as a beauty pageant, more or less, has now evolved into a stepping stone to power and position. And I like the idea that every year they you know pass the Persephone pendant from one woman to another. And it's a character I've always wanted to do something with in the book, and I was never finding a place to fit the character in, but finally, in American Angel, we see quite a bit of her, and and I was talking to someone about this, and I think one of the reasons I couldn't find a way to fit in Persephone is the more I thought about it, the more I thought what I'm really interested in Persephone is after their Persephone, the women who are no longer Persephone. There's dozens of them out there, and one of them we know has gone on to be the mayor of New Hope City.
Yeah.
And now her daughter is the current Persephone, and there's a certain dynamic there that's interesting to look at. But there's probably others that have gone on to Hollywood. There's probably others that have gone on to be drug addicts. I'm really interested in what being Persephone for a year has done to these women, and I would love to be able to do. I've always said all of these characters, Holidays, Captain Lightning, Polecat, American Angel, Persephone, they could all have their own series. I mean, they're all the stars of their own movie. They just happen to be in the Impossible Jones movie right now. But
So yeah,
yeah,
would you do solos for them, not starring Impossible Jones at some point?
let me put it this way: I could easily do that. Finding the time to do that is the question. You know,
Would you ever try to ask other writers to tackle those particular characters?
nah, I probably would not do that.
Okay. One of the things that I find quite interesting is that you created Holly Days as a Harley Quinn surrogate, but also very specifically for a holiday story. And now you're just using her quite liberally. So it seems like Holly Days became a bigger character than you expected,
Yeah.
much like one Harley Quinn.
Exactly. Well, I think that has a lot to do with the energy of that sort of character, certainly. But yeah, I mean, even the very first time, she showed up in Grin and Gritty, from the very beginning, Impossible Jones had said, we should get drinks together sometime. And, and like Holly was going, I'm a villain, but the two of them have a really great rapport and work together really well and play off each other really well. And it's one of those cases where the characters take on a life of their own and say, you might think I'm going to go and stand over in the shadows, but actually I'm going to go and stand next to Impossible Jones. That's what I'm going to do.
It's great. Their dynamic is great. It's one of my favorite things in the book. Does it, in contrast, somebody like Captain Lightning is a little bit of a stick in the mud. Does it make it harder to write somebody like that?
Yeah, it does. It does. And, I created Captain Lightning in second grade, and I drew many, many adventures of him when I was a kid. And so I have a great fondness for him. And sometimes I go, oh, he's like kind of boring here. He's kind of the guy no one wants to hang out with. And once again, I was writing the new material. There's an epilogue with him and talking to the mayor of New Hope City. And things come up in their conversation, and I'm going, once again, I would really like to explore this. I'd like, it's a passing comment here, but I can see the whole story. I mean, quite honestly, he mentions his sister, and I know who his sister is, and I know what their relationship is. And as soon as I wrote that, I go, it would be just so great to write a story about Captain Lightning and his sister, you know.
I'm not going to ask you who his sister is, but I am going to ask you if we've already seen his sister.
No, you have not seen his sister.
Okay.
This is the first time she's been mentioned. Yeah.
Okay.
I actually, I know who she is, and she is many, many, many years ago appeared on a Christmas card I did. Many years ago, like 30 years ago. These ideas, they never go away. You know, they just like sit in here and fester. So,
Well, I find it interesting because somebody like Holidays, built on the archetype of Harley Quinn. Somebody like Captain Lightning really does seem to be built on the archetype of Captain America or Hal Jordan
right.
or even Superman, but without any levity, without the levity that comes with those characters. Hal Jordan tends to be happy-go-lucky, and
Mhm.
Captain America at this point feels like he's not always that serious. It feels like the seriousness of Captain Lightning you are intentionally trying to amp up. Or do you think that's a side effect of being right next to somebody
Well,
like
I think
Impossible
part of
Joe?
it is being a side effect. I mean, but of course, in the Captain Lightning Impossible Jones story, he tries to be funny, and Impossible Jones is going, "Oh my God, he's not a funny guy, and he's trying to be funny." But and I think she knows what she's talking about when it comes to funny. Um, but that does not mean he's not a sincere guy. That does not mean he is not a good guy. And as is revealed in the Impossible Jones Captain Lightning story, he does have political ambition. And I think that
Mhm.
colors a lot of the way he acts in public. In fact, it colors everything he does in public.
Is it harder to write funny or a character who's trying to be funny but isn't?
And that's a good question. I mean, I think that comes down to instinct. If I write something and I think it's funny, at least I think it's funny, but I'm not sure you're going to think it's funny. There are things I think are hilarious, and my kids don't think it's funny at all. So I mean, that's really in the eye of the beholder. Oh, hello, Jazzy. My dog just came in here. So, but
Uh,
anyways, yeah. And I do think I do think it's easier to write someone who thinks they're funny, because a lot of times I read stories and I go, they think they're funny here, but they're really not. So, oh
in
look,
Impo-
here, come here. My daughter has walked in. Here, can you say hello quickly? No, then why did you come in? Just come here. Say hi to all of the people. There's probably like 2 people watching. Never mind. Okay, but I have to get back to
there
talking.
there are 9 people watching.
See, 9 people. Wait, come here. Come here, Eliza. Eliza, please. Look, here's my daughter, Eliza.
Oh, awesome t-shirt.
Okay, that's it. And here's my dog, Jazzy. Jazzy is not wearing an Impossible Jones t-shirt. No.
That's not Copper.
No, Copper, unfortunately, is not with us anymore.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah, unfortunately. So,
That's
but we still have
terrible.
Jazzy.
Speaking of 9 people watching, a few of them want to say hi. Julio Candela says, I love Kiesel's work. His run on Daredevil is still awesome. Amazing artist and person.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
My friend JV says, love what you did with you and Tom Grummett did with Superboy, and is asking, uh, if you don't mind answering this right now, was your Daredevil run supposed to be short?
Well, it wasn't supposed to be short, but there came a point where it just didn't seem to be working anymore. So a lot of that was, I think, quite honestly, a lot of that was my inexperience of working at Marvel. And I know, for instance, I can tell you this. There was an issue featuring the Black Widow, and I wrote the issue, and it got drawn, it got printed, and after it was printed, I was talking with Ralph Macchio, and Ralph made a very good argument why Black Widow probably should have done the exact opposite of what I had her do. And I said, well, why didn't someone tell me that? I would have changed it. Ralph's argument was perfect. I understood exactly what he was saying. And once again, this is me not understanding how things worked at Marvel, because I know at that point I knew very well how things worked at DC, and I never had those sort of problems. And it was very frustrating and quite honestly disappointing to me that I had put out a book that could have been better. It could have been better with just a few calls, if someone had just talked to me about it, or if someone had shown Ralph the plot. I guess he hadn't seen it, that there were frustrations like that and I can't say they kept building and building, but at the time I had other opportunities that I decided to take instead.
It was a very tumultuous time at Marvel, so
Yeah.
I understand. Peter Turingan says, "Congrats. Don't really have any questions. Just want to say I enjoyed the first Impossible Jones trade paperback. I am happy to see that you're making more."
Great.
Getting back to Impossible Jones, in Captain Lightning, in the team up book with Captain Lightning, there is a super team that shows up entitled Section Zero, which very familiarly is a book that you did with the aforementioned Tom Grummett.
Yes.
So I know that everybody likes shared universes and stuff, but I feel like historically, with the exception of the Marvel Universe, crossovers have usually worked in a very Flintstones meets the Jetsons kind of way, where they will cross over for one story and then it's never going to get mentioned again. So, do Section Zero and Impossible Jones take place in the same universe, or is it a Flintstones and Jetsons kind of thing?
Well, I think it's more of a Flintstone Jetsons. I mean, there's a comment made that Captain Lightning has met Tom, the 24-hour bug, before. And this is why it's a one-off, really. This is why it's a one-off. When Tom and I created Section Zero, we decided very specifically they would age in real time. And if you read the first, and at this point only Section Zero book, the one we did 3 issues in 2000, and then in 2018 we did the last 3 issues. In the middle of it, there's a page that says 18 years later, because we aged all the characters 18 years because that's how long it passed. Impossible Jones exists in that sort of nebulous superhero verse where no time really passes. And so I did have a comment where, Captain Lightning mentions to Tom, "The last time I saw you, you were a kid," and Tom says, "And you never seem to get older,"
Yeah.
So, long term, they really cannot live in the same universe. No.
Okay. So, are there plans for more Section Zero?
Well, Tom is still working on Section 059, which is 5 years in the works right now. He has 12 pages left to do. 12 pages. And he told me in an email just this week, he's committing, please God, let this happen, committing to draw 1 page a week for the next 12 weeks until he's done. I mean, a lot of Tom's time nowadays is spent going to conventions and drawing commissions there, and that's his bread and butter. And I don't blame him. And then he comes home and he wants to sit in his house by the lake, and I don't blame him for that either. That's really great. But first he has to finish these 12 pages, and then he can sit by the lake all he wants.
I'm very confused because I feel like we've spent the last 2 minutes talking about Section Zero, but the last time I checked, there was no Section Zero.
Well, unfortunately, that little tagline sometimes comes back to haunt me lately.
So, is it fair to say that Polecat is of the Spider-Man mold?
Yeah, well, probably even more of a Daredevil mold, yeah.
I was gonna say Spider-Man because he's a little bit happier than Spider-Man, but I remembered now how you wrote Daredevil, so that makes sense.
Yeah, no, and of course my favorite part of Daredevil's history is when he was Matt and Mike Murdock. I just think that was inspired insanity. That will lightning in a bottle that will never be captured again.
Are you aware that Mike Murdock is a real character now?
See, that's what happens in comics. That's what happens. No, I did not know that there's a real Mike Murdock now.
Yeah, like something happened, and then Mike Murdock, the imaginary twin brother of Matt Murdock, got brought to life, and he's just like, well, that's comics for you.
Yeah, that is comics. I can't say I think that's a good idea, but I didn't think bringing Bucky back from the dead was a good idea either. So, it depends on execution. That's what it comes down to.
And speaking of execution, a lot of people would say naming a character Polecat isn't a good idea.
Well, since in some parts of the country it means skunk. Yeah, that's a really bad idea. But
But you really made that part of his character.
yeah, I did, and then yeah, because I once again had created Polecat in second grade when I didn't know what Polecat meant, and I was even thinking, Polecat, that's a great name for a hero. Why has no one chosen that name for a hero yet? You know, you had all the other cats, Black Panther, Tiger, Jaguar, Puma. You know, every cat was used. No one had used Polecat, and this is why, because in some parts of the country it means skunk. But I didn't know that, and so I did decide. Well, Polecat didn't know that either, and he thought it was a great name, and he was really good with a pole, and then when he found out, it was too late. He was stuck with the name, you know, and he's learned to live with it.
Which also means that out of everybody who is currently in New Hope, he's the one who clearly isn't from there, right?
Oh no, he is from there. He's a city.
Oh, he is from there? Okay, so he's a city boy.
Yeah,
Okay,
he's
so
a
he just
city boy. That's why he didn't know about what a polecat was.
Oh, okay. That's what I get for reading these things a while back.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I mean, polecat um, is really he's a people person. He's all about the people of New Hope City. I mean, I've been doing some posts, you know, talking up the different characters for the Ultra Cool Collector's Edition, and I did one about Polecat, and it's mentioned that he like knows the name of a freakish number of people in the city, and it's true. He like will land in a crowd and probably know the name of half a dozen people, and probably the name of their cat. You know, he's
And
just very connected to the people of the city. They're very, very important to him.
American Angel does mention to him that he's basically married to the city.
Yeah, he is. He is basically married to the city.
So going into C&D with Polecat and American Angel, like how did you really plan that out, knowing that these two characters were going to be connected?
Well, I mean, I like I said, I brought American Angel with me from previously working with Cullen Bunn, and somewhere in there, I decided that you know she and Polecat had this relationship that never quite came together, never quite worked, and so I started with there and worked backwards, and I decided that at some point in her past, she had been a different character, a character named Hellhound, and that you know she and Polecat had kind of a Daredevil Black Widow relationship without any romance. There was always a kind of a little wall between them, even though they had a great time together. And part of that was because Polecat found out she was married, and he respected that. But you know, the chemistry and attraction between them was very clear, and you know, so it's one of those great, you know, unrequited love stories that everyone loves to have in comics. You know.
I'm not going to spoil anything for anyone who hasn't read it, but there are plot twists with the Polecat and American Angel relationship that really had me going like, oh, the hair thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will say in the you know what basically most of the new stuff that we're doing for the collector's edition are epilogues to the American Angel story, and one of the epilogues, it ties up some of the loose ends between Polecat and American Angel, and there's another big reveal in there. Big reveal.
You're doing a big reveal for the additional pages?
Yes, yeah, it's a big reveal that once again has a huge impact on their relationship.
Oh my goodness. I'm so glad I pledged so early. So, everyone, the Impossible Jones Volume 2 Kickstarter collects Impossible Team-Ups, A, B, C, and D. That is Captain, in order, Holidays, Captain Lightning, Polecat, and American Angel. It is up on impossiblekickstarter.com. There will be 15 new pages, which includes a very big development between American Angel and Polecat. Right. Now, if you have any questions for Karl, leave them in the chat. I do want to talk about your question, your Mr. A, your Spectre, your Phantom Stranger, even Steven. when Impossible Jones Grin and Greedy came out, even Steven, you said, was the breakout character.
Yeah, he was definitely. I mean, breakout in that I'm not sure anybody wrote that they liked Polecat or Captain Lightning or Persephone, but I got quite a few comments, and quite a few means maybe 10 or 12, but in the context of the world I'm living, 10 or 12 people saying, I really like even Steven. I was going, wow, he's really striking some sort of chord. Yeah. So he was a clear breakout character. And the more I've done with him, the more that seems to be the case.
I do think it's because, you are working off of archetypes here. So American Angel is, Joan of Arc meets Iron Man. Captain Lightning is like a lot like Hal Jordan. Holidays is Harley Quinn, etc. But even Steven, the concept of mixing somebody like Mr. A or the original version of the question with somebody like the Spectre and the Phantom Stranger is like, how even did that cross your mind?
I can't even explain it. It's just, as I said, I started with the name, and I do that every so often. I'll just think of a name and I'll go, this is a horrible name for a hero, but what would it mean if it was a hero or a villain? I mean, what does this name say to me in a superhero context? And I started with even Steven, and well, even he faces everyone on an equal footing. He has to have the exact same powers someone else has. So if he has the exact same powers someone else has, he must be able to manifest, anything from acrobatics all the way up to Galactus. He's got to be able to face any of those people equally, and so he's basically omnipotent. He could really do anything he wants, but he's limited by his philosophy. He will only face someone on equal footing, and I think that's what makes him interesting.
Could he possibly lose? Is there a scenario in which he could lose a fight?
I guess that's a very good question. I'd like to see what would happen if he did. I have not thought that all the way through, so I cannot tell you. So I mean, it's possible. It's possible.
Okay, that's one of the things I was thinking that I thought, oh, this is a future story, I think. So with even Steven, what you did was you took a page from like classic Phantom Stranger stuff where the Phantom Stranger doesn't really have an origin.
Right.
You got guest writers to write different origins for him.
Right.
And these writers have included Mark Waid, Kurt Busiek, Alex Segura, Gail Simone, Lee Allred. What a cast of writers. Do you have a favorite?
Oh no, I can't. No, I can't say I have a favorite. I like them all. It was very interesting to work with them because they are very different people, and I was dealing with them kind of as an editor, and as an editor, really as a trafficker, because there was no right or wrong origin for even Steven, right? So, in fact, that was the whole point: was you can do whatever you want, Gail. You can do whatever you want, Mark, and it's not wrong, you know. So it was just interesting working with these people and seeing the different ways they worked, and like. Alex was very collaborative, and there was a lot of push and pull even between him and me, whereas someone like Mark, he handed something in and I was like going, yeah, this is all here, Mark. Thanks. So I don't know, I can't say I have a favorite. I can't say I have a favorite.
And he will never, none of them will ever be the official origin.
No, I don't think we'll ever know the official origin of him. That's the problem with even Steven, is he's best as a mystery. And if you it's like Wolverine. I think the more you solidify his origin, the less interesting he is,
But no, but I really like that Wolverine's real name is James.
See, that's what happens when you have a character who's like 40 years old and you have to keep coming up with new things, But like Mike Murdoch becomes real, So, but yeah. So I mean, we do plan to do more with Even Steven. We actually sometime this year we'll probably kickstart an Even Steven one shot, which collects all these origins. I know it's even going to be called the Many Odd Origins of Even Steven.
I love it.
So
Uh, Interestingly, there is a character that appears in all of the Even Steven origins, who is FBI Inspector Margot Lamond,
right.
who we have not seen
Well, we saw
in.
her in the original graphic novel. Yes,
Oh, right, 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 right,
he
right.
was. That's when she's hired, along with her partner Fosca, who goes on to become a thorn in Impossible Jones' side. She and her partner were hired to look into Even Steven. So, because the FBI goes, we got to know what's going on with this guy, because if he causes trouble, we have to be ready to deal with it. And so that's what the framing device is for all of these origins. Is she's interviewing different people, trying to figure out who this guy is, where he came from, what he can do, and yeah. But there's a story for her too. I know what her story is. I actually this is in the book you haven't gotten yet. In the Angel book, the Lee Allred Even Steven origin. Um, I told him what the story was behind Margot and where her character goes, and he
Hmm.
actually drops clues in his story. They're very, very obscure. If you don't know they're there, you're not going to notice them. But Lee
But
Lee
we
likes,
will notice them after you tell the
yeah,
story.
yeah. Lee
Okay.
Lee likes doing that. Lee likes dropping little clues like that you and I, as normal people won't notice. But then when you get to the end and you look back, you go, he mentioned it here. He mentioned it right here, and I didn't notice. And that's one of the things I love about how Lee works. I love that sort of thing.
You also work with different artists on that one, you know. Wait, so you're right. Like you worked with him as an editor, uh, but it didn't really need to do that much work because any even whatever happens with Even Steven is fair game. But what about all the Margot stuff? Like, did you have a heavier hand in that?
No, not really. I mean, no one ever did a lot with Margot. Lee enjoyed knowing what her story was, so he could kind of lean into that a little bit. But yeah, no, as long as Margot was fairly consistent, meaning she's a competent investigator, she doesn't have a really deep personality beyond that. I
Okay,
really, but there's a story, and well, I don't want to say anymore. Don't want to say anymore.
because that story will be told one day.
That story will be told. I think we're going to try to tell that story in the next Impossible Jones Volume 3 book, the now what will be Volume 3, Alias Smith and Jones.
Okay, I want to summarize what's going on with the Kickstarter right now, but before we do, let's attend to a question in the chat. So from JV. Oh, by the way, everyone, you can ask Karl any questions you want here. So
Anything.
JV's asking follow-up question. What were your plans for Daredevil had you stayed for the long haul? When we opened up a live stream, I really thought a lot of the questions would be about Superman.
Interesting. Interesting. Well, I mean, I think it's no secret that I was really hoping to have Matt run for mayor of New York City. I put that on the table and it had kind of been squelched. But if I had my druthers and I had continued on the book, I really would have liked to see that. That's really all I can remember about that time. I can't say, oh, I was going to bring back Stiltman and he was going to be the most vicious version of that character you'd ever seen. I can't remember. I can't remember anything specific there.
When you did the Spider-Man issue, were you disappointed it was Ben Riley?
No,
No.
it
Okay.
was fine. So
Spider-Man, Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. I mean, how many Spider-Man are there now? So
Okay. So your goal was 20,000 US dollars. You are
right.
currently at 37,387 with 21 days to go.
I like
Congratulations.
those numbers. I like those numbers.
It's so you are fully funded in 3 hours and 30 minutes.
Just about right in that area. Yeah.
Right now, so your stretch goals include a Persephone sticker, which you've already met here,
Yeah,
by
we have.
Giancarlo Bernal. Filipino.
Yeah, your neck of the woods. So, yeah, do you know him at all? By the way,
I do not know him. No.
Okay,
I
it's
think we're Facebook friends, but I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
think
me
I've ever
too.
met him.
So I just didn't know. I just didn't know.
Part of those is also end sheets, an Imp Chibi sticker, also by Giancarlo, and the Retina Burning hot pink ribbon bookmark.
Yeah, yeah, man.
What other stretch goals can we look forward to here?
Well, I mean, I'm trying to figure out what our next one is because we did meet the Persephone sticker, so we're due a new stretch goal, um, and I'm just trying to figure out what to do next. I know the I want to add a fifth color to the cover, a hot pink, so that Impossible Jones' lips and some of the lettering that are in hot pink really are hot pink. I did that with the Section Zero hardcover. The green that's on that is not a normal green; it was a fifth color, and I really like how that really makes those elements pop. So a fifth color. We will not be doing spot gloss on this cover. There's really just no spot for it. There's no place that I feel it would work. But I mean, beyond that, we have another chibi sticker in the wings. I have two pinups by people that I'm hoping to add as stretch goals, and I'd like to do one and maybe even two enamel pins. Going, since we're going in order of the team ups, that would be Polecat and Captain Lightning. Um,
Okay.
so if we could do those, I think that would take us for quite a stretch. Quite a stretch right there.
Are you reprinting the alternate covers in the pinups, right?
All of them, they'll all be in there, and the covers from the Scout comics. I really see these things.
Ah,
I really want these books to be as complete as possible. History or documentation of Impossible Jones to that point. And the only exception to that is I will never reprint the Dan Jurgens cover. That was
I was
on
gonna
the
ask.
no that I promised, and that was my own promise. Dan didn't like make me promise that or anything, but I said we're never going to reprint this. If people want it, damn it, they got to get it here. And I'm almost sold out. I think I got like 9 copies left. So
You got to get the original Dan Jurgens cover.
yeah, because it's not going to be reproduced anywhere ever again.
So
It's going to be
those,
very
inc-
collectible, very collectible.
so Dan Jurgens, of course, is a familiar name to people who were there for your Superman Superboy run.
Yeah, yeah. He was like right there when I was doing Superman and Superboy. Yeah, a big presence in the room. But yeah, yeah,
So the 252-page oversized hardcover collects the Impossible Team Up A to D, 15 new story pages.
yeah.
Additional back matter, again, all the alternate covers and pinups, which include people like Adam Hughes, Terry Moore, Bill Sienkiewicz, Jeff Smith, Stuart Immonen, Tom Grimmett. Again, except Dan Jurgens. Also, fold out for featuring Art, the one and only Art Adams.
Yes, definitely.
Amazing. Every backer will receive a print version of the book, a PDF of the book, and the name thanked in the book, as
Yeah,
well as the
unless they're
temporary
just a
tattoo.
digital backer.
Ah,
What was
okay.
that? Yeah,
And
yeah,
also
yeah.
a temporary tattoo.
I talked over you again. What was that?
A temporary tattoo.
Yes, I mean, oh, I have long sleeves on, so you can't see it, but I have my. Mm, mm, mm. Where is it here? Here it is. Here it is.
There it is.
There it is. Mm.
Imp eating a burger.
It's
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 great.
actually a sub sandwich. So for some reason, I thought David and I both loved that image when he drew it.
Oh
So I
yeah,
decided to get that as my tat.
that's great. You have multiple tiers here, so including people can just get the PDF for $12 if they want. Both PDFs actually for $20.
Right?
That's
Yeah.
a
Both
that's a steal.
books. Yeah,
Uh,
I think it is a steal.
the Imp team up for $45 with the book plate $55. Both books $75. $90 for both books with book plates. $100 for the retailer copies, which is 4 copies each,
Yeah, and with 4 book plates.
and with 4 book plates.
Yeah.
You are already out of the early backer ones.
Oh yeah, exactly. The early backer stuff ended after 48 hours. Yeah.
Amazing. At least, and it didn't end after 3 hours and 30 minutes.
So
Uh, Candelas asks, which pencilers do you enjoy inking at any given time?
well, I enjoy a lot of different kind of pencilers. I mean, I enjoy inking Tom Grummett a lot. I enjoy inking David Hahn a lot. I will say probably the penciler I enjoyed inking the most was John Byrne. I just really, really enjoyed. I loved inking him, and there was so much I saw in his pencils that I really tried to capture in ink because I was going. I haven't seen this in his printed comics before, but they're here in his pencils. Now, it could be that they weren't there in his pencils earlier, because I also saw John, even in the time I was inking him, evolve. His pencils kept evolving, and they're evolving still to this day. But I was always really impressed not only with his character work, his great facial expressions, but he must have this mind that can look at something, and I don't know, I haven't talked to him about this, but it seems to me he must have this mind that he can look at something and he catalogs details very easily, and then he can draw them. He can put them, they can come through his pencil onto the paper. Because I know he had a story set in some caves, and I was inking it, and I was going, these stalagmites really look like drippy rocks. I mean, they didn't look like just jagged stuff. It looked like the sort of slow drip that there was like this drippy rock, and I was amazed by that texture, that he could capture that texture. And the speed he works at, he was not opening National Geographics and looking at those textures. He probably had looked at National Geographics years ago, and it was in his head. That's my way of rationalizing it, at least. There are people I've worked at like that. I've worked with people like that they can look at something and it just kind of gets absorbed into them, and then they can put it on the paper. There's not a lot of them, but he's one of them, I think.
Who was the most tiring penciler to ink?
Tiring? Well, what do you mean by tiring?
And why is it George Perez?
Well, I was just going to say George Perez was someone who it took a lot of work to ink his pages, but it was always worth it. And quite honestly, a lot of John Byrne's pages were not easy to ink as far as time-wise goes. I would spend 12 hours inking some of his pages. So John, was not an easy ink necessarily, but I enjoyed both of them tremendously. Yeah.
I remember talking to you before about inking somebody like Steve Rude, and you saying, like, because of Steve's style, there's really no room for error, right?
Yeah.
Because somebody like John or George, in case you missed a little bit of a line, it might still look like part of their style. Right. Is David Hahn the same way?
Yeah, I think so. David, obviously very, very minimal line work, so you've got to get it in the right spot. And with David, and I've said this to David, and I probably said it to you, is David's clean line work can look very sterile if you're not careful. And so I feel my job as an inker is to give him a slightly more organic look, which is why I ink him with a brush. I try to give, and many times I try to kind of ink it pretty quickly so it has that real spontaneous feel. So it doesn't feel really precise and, labored over is the wrong word, because David's stuff doesn't look labored over. But I feel my job as an inker on David is to give him just a little more warmth and organic feel to his work, which is, otherwise I think really spot on.
I want to give another shout out to one artist that has worked on all of these team up books, and that's Don Chicade.
What?
And that's Don Chicade.
Who? What? I don't know who that is. What?
Dan Chicade. Am I saying his name wrong? Is it Chicade?
Scotty.
Like, okay.
He says it's like if Sean Connery says it, Scotty.
Scotty. Okay. Yeah. I learned something today. Don Scotty.
Yeah. You got to pretend you're Sean Connery when you say Scotty. Yeah,
Yeah.
he did a lot of the Even Stevens solo stories. Didn't do one in the very latest one that you haven't gotten, but in all the other issues, he's done at least one and sometimes both. So
And the new one, the American Angel one, has art by Steve Lieber
Steve Lieber
and the second story
and David Hahn. David
and
Hahn.
David Hahn.
Yeah,
Right.
David likes drawing Even Steven too. So, but
I think that's a great it's a great example of the diversity of these Even Steven stories, because Dan's style looks nothing like Steve Lieber's style.
oh no, that's very true. Yeah. But they both work, and quite honestly, I have to say, wait till you see the Steve Lieber story. It's astounding. First of all, of course, he's a great artist, and but Ryan Cody, who colored it, he when he sent me the colors, he goes, "I just had this wild idea, and I just went with it, and it's wonderful." It really is a case of Ryan's coloring. It takes Steve's story to another level. It really does.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now on my PDF
Oh
copy,
yeah, you've got the PDF. I forgot.
and it's gorgeous. It's
Yeah, no,
beautiful.
Ryan just went crazy on that story, and it really shows, and it's wonderful. And I know Steve loves it too. Steve is just really, really thrilled with the coloring on it.
Peter Thuringen asks, "Do you keep up with ongoing comic series right now, and which ones are you reading these days?"
Hard for me to keep up on regular comics. I do read. Usually, I wait for the collections. I don't. I'm one of those guys that doesn't get into the store every week. So I've been reading the collections of Mark Waid's World's Finest, and I've been really loving Nightwing. You know, Tom Taylor's Nightwing, which if you had told me 5 years ago I would be reading Nightwing, I would have like laughed in your face. I thought Nightwing was such a useless character, and Tom has figured out not just a place for him in the DC universe, but a central place, and it makes perfect sense. I mean, I am amazed when I read those books. I'm amazed when I read those books.
Why did you not like them?
It just never interested me. I mean, I just didn't see a point to him, really.
Is it because he wasn't Robin, but he also wasn't Batman?
I guess that's what it comes down to.
Right.
And what does that mean? He's like neither fish nor fowl, and he's like, you know. And quite honestly, you know, my feeling was he's off in Bloodhaven, which is like second-rate Gotham. So he's second-rate Batman and second-rate Gotham, and Tom Taylor proved me wrong. So, and I'm sure there might have been very fine Nightwing stories before this, but nothing won me over. This has won
Yeah.
me over.
I
You
was
know,
I always thought like I'm like he's only good when he's teaming up with someone, but like a Titan or like
yeah,
Batman
yeah.
or Superman. But Peter also adds, "The Fantastic Four are my favorite superhero comics ever. I want to say that your time there with Mark Waid and Michael Ringo is probably my favorite run, with
Wow.
apologies to Stan Lee and Jack Kirby."
I have to say, I think we take second place to at least them, and maybe third place behind John Byrne too. But I have to say, they've done. I have not read Ryan North's new Fantastic Fours, so I can't say how I feel about those. But I know that Jonathan Hickman's run was great too. I loved his run on Fantastic Four. So
I'm
there's
gonna
been good runs.
I'm gonna say you guys ruined the Fantastic Four for me, because after I read your run, every time I try to read a Fantastic Four run, they start fighting Doctor Doom. A part of me is like, I've already read the best Doctor Doom story.
Well, I will tell Mark you said that because Mark is very concerned about not doing the same thing over and over again. And he wanted if he want he knew you have to do a Doctor Doom story when you do Fantastic Four, but he wanted to find a new way to do it, and he did. That guy's a genius.
As we wrap up this live stream, I would like to ask you, after 40 years in the business, how do you still continue to to be on top of your game, to create well-crafted stories, to do, as well as to be such an excellent inker on top of all that?
I don't know. I don't know how I do that. I mean, really, what it comes down to is passion for the medium. I love comics. I've always wanted to do comics. if I wasn't in comics, I'd probably be working at Burger King. Really, I mean, I've got no skills in the outside world beside this. Um, so it just comes down to passion, and I do think um, after many years working at Marvel or DC, uh, I found kind of like this new outlet which has re-energized me. The whole Kickstarter thing, and
Yeah.
that isn't just doing creator owned, but I found that I really enjoy, you know, being the editor, being the trafficker, dealing with the printer, designing the books, packaging and sending out the fulfillment. I really enjoy all of this. I enjoy the fact that I'm putting on these mailing labels and I go, oh, Robin Begins, or Randall Begins. He's like backed every one of these projects. You start to really recognize the names, and or you go, this is a name I've never seen before. This is good that he's getting Impossible Jones. He's never gotten it before. I enjoy all of this, and I do think that's one of the reasons why my interest and my energy is still like it was 40 years ago when all this was new to me.
It's a very similar question, but for anybody, for any creator who might be watching us right now, for any fledgling creator, like I said, when we first started doing this, some of these Kickstarters went down to the wire. Now you're getting funded in 3 hours and 30 minutes and that stuff. In the beginning, how do you keep your motivation up, even as it's going down to the wire, to the point where you get to now where you're funded in less than a day?
Well, you just got to believe in what you're doing and believe it's worth getting out there, and believe that if you enjoy reading it, other people are going to enjoy reading it too. That's kind of a gamble. I do stuff that I enjoy, and hopefully it's stuff you enjoy. It's stuff, a lot of people will enjoy. But I mean, really, the first person you got to make happy is yourself. And I mean, I think being an artist is always a juggling act between thinking you're really good and thinking you're awful, because you got to think you're good, or you're not going to stick with it. You're not going to, you're not going to see it through. But at the same time, you got to think you're awful, because you always have to try to be better, And I would like to think, at least on my writing side, my writing is better now than it's ever been. I do think as I get older, my inking is maybe not quite as good as it used to be. Unfortunately, my fingers are not as nimble as they used to be. But I think the product I'm putting out is overall of better quality than it was 10 or 15 years ago, I think. Now, there's high points in my career that I'm never going to hit again, where everything came together and Superboy was created. That's a real high point. And you can't set out to recreate that. All you can do is set out to have as much enjoyment as you did then, and we'll go from there.
It's unfair to ever ask you to create anything as big as Superboy, because that was coming off like the biggest event in the history of comics.
Yeah, it was that, and once again, though, that was just pieces fell in place. No one walked in. I did not walk into the meeting knowing I would walk out with Superboy, and didn't walk out knowing what Superboy would be to so many people. That's what interested me in Tom. We thought we could have some fun with it, and we had a lot of fun with it.
Karl, there's an alternate universe where Jerry Ordway doesn't leave the Superman titles, in which case that means that you wouldn't have come on to do Superboy. How do you think your career would have changed?
It would have been totally different. That was a career-changing moment for me. It made my whole career. I would not be here talking to you today. I mean, I have always been very attracted to quirky little characters like Hawk and Dove. And I mean, until there was a movie, I would have included Suicide Squad with that. Characters that most of the world don't even know exist, And those were the characters I was always very interested in. The Newsboy Legion, the Challengers of the Unknown. I would have probably spent my whole life trying, as I always said, trying to trick people into buying comic books with those characters, because I wanted to work on them. That's what my career would have been. I would have been quirky Karl Kesel working on these little projects. Now I'm still quirky Karl Kesel, but I worked on Superman and Superboy.
And of course, you created Superboy, which means that wasn't like a corporate edict or anything, which means that if Jerry had stayed on in that alternate universe, Superboy's not created either.
Yeah, who knows what he and Tom would have come up with? Something very different. I don't know what it would have been.
Interesting. Well, I'm glad that we are in the world we live in because I do love Impossible Jones. I think it's pretty obvious. Congratulations. Thank you for joining this live stream, entertaining the audience questions. It's always a pleasure to have you on. I can't wait to get the book.
Okay, well, thank you. It's always a pleasure to be on. I'm always very happy you have time for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. ImpossibleKickstarter.com. Get on that right now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karl.